answer is going to be. So I've gone to meetings. I haven't spoken out. I have not done that. I have researched. What's going on. I've reviewed the reports, but I have not spoken out, Gary. But that does not mean if I haven't spoken out, if I'm elected, then I'm not going to do whatever it takes to ensure the safety and well-being of the residents. Sometimes actions are more important than words, and that's how I look at things. The safety, well-being of residents is primary.
I don't remember the sequence of things, I have to apologize, but from the moment that the most recent draft environmental impact report, specific plan, and draft of regulations, which collectively are the package of environmental documents that provide information about the oil field and the regulation of the oil field, and actually doing the work of regulating the oil field. I read it. First thing I did was I read it because I'm curious. And in my day job, for a long time, I've been reading lots of long, boring documents and figuring out how to make them accessible and make a persuasive case based on what's in there. So, and before announcing, I was involved in at least one is not the lawsuit, but one lawsuit against an oil company that's responsible for a number of inland oil spills, or so we allege. And so when I read the environmental documents, I read the specific plan, which is a major part of the regulation, and I read the actual draft regulations, made notes, and started to connect with people who are organizing around this issue, because it's the first of its kind. It's been almost 100 years and we haven't had good regulations. This is a great opportunity. So, I mean, a lot of my campaigning about the oil field has been trying to create consensus, to almost remove it as a campaign issue, so that we are of one voice in protecting the community and compelling Los Angeles County to provide the same strict protections for its residents that we're going to provide to our residents. I also shortly, this may have been after I announced my candidacy, forgive me if it is, but I also put together a short primer, sort of Environmental Impact Report 1 for people, and hosted a webinar. That you can still find the slide deck from that webinar online, just basically laying out what is the Environmental Impact Report, what is its role in the whole regulatory process, and what does it say, and what are the dangers that are posed to the community.
So this is an issue that I've been advocating for at the city council level for many years now. Locally, I've been organizing with the Sierra Club Clean Break Committee, Frack Free Culver City, and the Culver City Democratic Club. I think about 3 or 4 years ago, we were organizing around the fact that we thought the Environmental Impact Report was going to come out 2 years ago. And we were organizing in the context of how do we read it, how do we respond to it, how do we make a comment that will be taken seriously and worked into the process and hopefully into the ordinances. Early last year, I was working with the Sierra Club Clean Break Committee in Frack Free Culver City around making sure that the Environmental Impact Report was released. And we actually tried in early 2017 to get the report released and to delay the delay that Sentinel Peak Resources asked for, and we were upset with that. Late last year, I was organizing with the same groups, trying to extend the comment period for the Environmental Impact Report, because we initially got 60 days, but the city's first meeting around the Environmental Impact Report, in which they told people how to read it, you know, what the next steps are, what we're going to do, was about 30 days in. So in reality, we only had 30 days to read a fairly complex document and come up with, you know, really informed comments. And we successfully got a 120-day extension of the time period to make comments, which is why I keep reiterating the deadline is looming in the next 2 weeks, March 13th or March 14th. I continue to do the same thing. If you've been to a city council meeting, you've probably heard me talk about the Englewood oil field at least 2 or 3 times in the last 4 or 5 years. And prior to that, I've volunteered with various environmental groups.
First of all, I want to thank you all for coming and that you're interested in doing public service. You all four are very articulate, presentable, wise. So what really, because of your knowledge of one another, differentiates you, that you know, between each candidate? And if you could put it into more succinct bullet points for maybe 1 to 3 items that you notice that really differentiates you from the other candidates.
I'll take it. I think what makes me different is we're all great. I mean, we are. I mean, we all bring our own sort of expertise to the table. I was born and raised in this community. I know Culver City. It's the fabric of the city that I fell in love with. You know, through the store, it really gives me a unique opportunity to meet people from all areas of Culver City. When they come in and they express their concerns, say, hey, Albert, you know, I got this problem in my neighborhood, or I got this problem in my neighborhood. It really gives me sort of like my thumb on the heartbeat of all areas of Culver City. I know the inner workings of the city, you know, being on the Civil Service Commission, but being involved with the city, you know, in terms of relationship with department heads, things, you know, people in the city where you can really get things done collectively. I know how to work with people, but more so than that, just my relationship with the community, my relationship with customers come in who are part of this community, express, you know, their needs and wants. You know, I think collectively, it really is about we. It's not about me. It's what we as a community want of our city, what we need to move our city forward. And I believe I'm the perfect person for that. You know, I'm fully accessible. I'm at the store almost 24 hours a day, unfortunately. But I think, you know, that's more so than not. Just working with people and listening to their needs, and working with the city, and trying to do what's best for the entire community.
The easiest and most concrete is more profound than I think it seems, and that's that I'm the only candidate with children right now in Culver City schools. And it seems minor, but I do get the perspective of riding a bike on our streets with my kids and walking on our streets with my kids and talking to other parents about their fears about affordability, about their aging parents and what they're going to do, how they're going to accommodate them with the rules that we have in our city and the resources that we have, and how we're going to, you know, will our kids be able to come back and live in Culver City someday. So that makes me think all the way from 8 to 80, I think, and beyond. But also my unique set of experience in education, I think, makes me just oddly, through my interests, well suited to be a council member. I focused on cities to some extent in college. My major was one of these Berkeley majors, political economy and industrial societies. And so we got to focus on something. I focused on cities, the nitty-gritty of running a city and the budgets and all that, and also the more intangible, the cultural, what is it that makes cities so productive and interesting and exciting for humans. After that, working at a, you know, sort of a high rate firm, I had my first argument with a city manager in my 20s, and you know, we had to speak as equals. So I've been speaking to CEOs, CFOs, city managers, and those types of people for a long time as an equal. That doesn't mean I'm going to bully the city manager, but it does mean that I will stand my ground, I will ask tough questions, and I'm inquisitive and want to get to the fundamental issues. Both with, that also applies to talking to developers. You know, I've worked with developers as clients, I've worked with developers as adversaries, and they're a little bit of both when they want to build in your city. So you need someone who you know is going to represent your interests and represent them well and vigorously. And so I offer that with real world experience.
I've been active in the community for a good 14 years, not just for a campaign, this one or a past campaign. I'm the only one that was a planning commissioner, 8 years, seen a whole bunch of traffic studies, seen a whole bunch of EIR. With the general plan update, I was involved with a couple of elements when I was on the planning commission, so I dealt with that, and I know how heavy lifting it is, especially since we're going to update the whole plan, the general plan. As a former battalion commander, I've commanded soldiers. The responsibility that you have when you're responsible for the lives of other people, hundreds of lives. I know that's small compared to our city, but I take that seriously. That is a huge responsibility. I'm not running to use this as a platform to be an assembly person or some other higher mark. I'm asking to be a council member because I really, really care, and I take this responsibility to heart.
So one of the just physical classification distinctions between me and the other candidates is I'm the only renter. And I know oftentimes Culver City is characterized as a city that is primarily homeowners, but we're actually about 40 to 45% renters. And this dictates a lot of the things that I care about in terms of the policies that I push. Not that they are exclusive to renters, but they are inclusive to renters, which I think a lot of our policy in the past hasn't been. One of the things that I saw walking door to door last time, and I'm seeing reflected this time, is that there are a lot of more senior individuals in our community who have rented in the same place for the last 20 or 30 years. And a lot of those people are the people that are actually being pushed out of our community. Oftentimes we hear about young people not being able to live here, and that is true. That's true. But seniors are not being allowed to age in place. Other distinctions, I think I have a bit more of a varied background. I'm an Air Force veteran. When I was in the Air Force, I was a SATCOM wideband telemetry and space systems. I was also in charge of teaching both CPR and self-aid buddy care, which is combat self-aid. I was a very active activist, basically a volunteer activist in a number of sectors: environmental justice, social justice, Occupy, and the like. I'm on the board of directors for Move to Amend, which is a national organization which is advocating for an amendment to the Constitution that says corporations are not people and money is not free speech. I just joined the board of directors for the Backbone Campaign, which is a national organization which is designed to encourage Democrats to have backbone and stand up for their principles. But then I also spent 10 years in the Screen Actors Guild. My undergrad is in film. I'm a Bruin. I'm a Trojan. I've been to Coachella like 13 times. But basically, I come from a varied background. My master's is in social work from UCLA, and I have, I would say, a great deal of empathy.
Is there someone who has not spoken yet that has a question for one of our candidates? Okay, then.
Okay, a little while ago when I was walking precinct for one of you candidates, I discovered up in the Culver Hills one complaint that was mentioned by a number of households. This is an area that is solidly R1, and they were pointing out various brand new developments that were permitted as R1. One in particular, I could look up there in the hill and I saw 3 balconies, and the homeowner with gritted teeth was telling me that there are 3 families living, occupying the 3 levels of that structure, and this is an R1 neighborhood, and these people are homeowners that are looking at to the equity in their homes. What are you gentlemen going to do about that if you're elected to the city council?
So for me, I think this is less of a question about R1 and more of a question about location and safety. Because in that particular area, I think it's Culver Crest, there are a lot of hillsides. And if anyone's watched the news in Southern California in the last 30 years, we've all seen numerous houses fall down a hill. I think the question really is safety and how we change our building regulations based on the geographical makeup of the neighborhood. In that particular area, unfortunately, that's already been approved. So there's not much that we can do right now. But in the future, I think we can advocate, and I think the city council is also already in process for stricter requirements for hillside development. And I think that's the way to move forward, to make sure that the people who build are building safely and that they can, but also that their neighbors down below are ensured of safety in the case of an earthquake, or as we know in Southern California, in case of a slightly heavy rain, that can bring down a house on top of them.
I guess we would think it's common sense that if you're on a flat land versus a hillside, the design guidelines would have to be different. It took us a while to figure that out. And the council is spending some money. They've hired consultants, a good team to come up with the design guidelines for hillside properties. The floor area ratio for flat land should not be the same as for a hillside. Shouldn't have necessarily be able to have a pool on a hillside that's going to possibly collapse and fall on your neighbor downslope. When I was on the planning commission, the gateway community by the post office, 90232, there was an uproar, and I know there was a question on mansionization, but I'm just going to throw this in here. What was happening is some properties were being tied together to build townhome, condo type of things. The neighborhoods felt that these projects were not compatible with the neighborhood. So what occurred is there was a whole bunch of heavy lifting. Planning staff, the neighborhood, planning commission, and what we came up with was design guidelines for that particular area. I think we need to really seriously look at this, especially with the general plan update, to look at area-specific design guidelines, because even though it's not perfect, it's a lot better than what it was before.
The answer to this one's sort of already in process, fortunately, and that is the hillside design guidelines. There's a plan that the city council, the final plan that the city council saw, I think 2 weeks ago. And I've looked at it. I haven't read it in detail, but I certainly read the executive summary and skimmed it. And I think it's, it has all the indicators of a quality piece of work. And I think from what I understand, it's down to the level where, it's such a specific document that it's down to the level where individual homeowners and people who own property up there are coming in with questions and recommendations and that sort of thing. So it's very important that we do this. The city knew shortly after Cranks and Blanco developed that this was one of the most active sections on the surface of all of Baldwin Hills, and obviously the Baldwin Hills are pretty active. So, this is an issue, and we need to get the regulations right. The thing that I think is most important right now for that neighborhood is that we get this ordinance done. We've got the plan, looks good, we're getting input. City council now needs to, there's a moratorium in place for hillside development. City council needs to get the ordinance done so that we can lift the moratorium, stop the city's exposure to lawsuits, and allow people to enjoy their property again. So we've got the blueprint, and now it's time to make the ordinances work for the community and keep people safe.
I think safety is always paramount for me. In attending all the neighborhood meetings that they have with the developer and the community up there, I understand their concerns. It's really a safety issue. In my understanding is Culver City is really below standards, the hillside safety standards, in opposed to other cities. LA, there should be no reason why we're below standards. We need to be above grade or above standards. We need to really step up our game in terms of that. Yeah, the plan is underway. I think Culver City needs to move forward quickly. We need to really get something in place. The study is done, it's a great study, but we really need to implement it quickly. Something where it provides a level of safety for the entire neighborhood. They were talking about building on slopes between 15 and 50%. We need to come to determination what's the best, what's the safest for the neighborhood. I think that one particular house up on Cranks was sort of the catalyst to it all, and it really invited this conversation, and I'm glad it did, because it really is now going to provide the level of safety in that neighborhood that we so need.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, I would want to remind everybody that the candidates have literature out on the table. If you would like to register to vote by mail, there are people out in the walkway here, and I'm going to release the candidates so that they are free to mingle. And now that you've had a chance to hear them speak, you may have some individual questions. I would also like to compliment the audience and thank you for being such a great audience and being respectful of our candidates, and thank all of our candidates for fielding these questions. Thank you.